I am unprepared. How am I going to situate the situation? Ooh, scandalous. Okay, I don't know why you guys are moving so much. Whoa, okay. Here we go. Backing you up so that you don't have to see my face. Okay, if you are new here, I would love... Hello book lovers, welcome back to the channel. My name is Steph, and in today's video we will be doing Tackle My TBR episode 7. Hello, hi, and welcome. Welcome to episode 7 of Tackle My TBR. If this is the first episode of Tackle My TBR that you are watching, I will leave the entire playlist linked down below so that you can watch all of the previous episodes. Episode 1 does kind of explain how we play Tackle My TBR on this channel, but essentially I am just looking to read more of my own books, and I absolutely love involving my subscribers in that process. I have been having such a fun time filming these episodes. But yes, I am sure that all of you guys know how Tackle My TBR works at this point, so let us not waste any time and let's get right on in to randomly selecting some books using your coordinates. I don't know how many books we will be doing for this episode. I feel like this episode I am just going to go off of vibes and see what books get selected. So I will insert the random wheel spinner right here. So let's see what book gets selected. Again, you guys did really enjoy bookshelf 7 last time, so let's see if some different bookshelves get selected. Okay, so this is an actually very interesting set of coordinates because this person put 1, 1, 1 or 3, 5, and 19, and 4 different people sent in the coordinates of 1, 1, and 1, and also 2 different people sent in the coordinates of 3, 5, and 19. So I feel like I will choose the 1, 1, and 1 just because more people sent that in, and then I will save the 3, 5, and 19 for a different episode of Tackle My TBR. Hopefully I remember to re-add that set of coordinates back into the list, but let's go see what the very first book on the first bookshelf is. Okay, so I feel like I am super squished in the corner over here, so there is literally no good angle. And I'm also convinced that you guys can probably not even see the first book that is over here, but obviously we don't need to count very far. We just need to go right here. And the first book on the first shelf that I own is Owned by a Hitman by Alexis Abbott. So yeah, I'm just gonna lower you guys back down because that angle was absolutely atrocious. And I have no idea how I'm going to film the top shelf of my bookshelf because it is very, very high. But hopefully you guys saw that the book that was selected was Owned by a Hitman by Alexis Abbott. I have not heard anyone talking about this. I picked this up at a thrift store and I feel like it is like self-published. So yeah, this is going to be book number 1 for Tackle My TBR episode 7, and I apologize for the most atrocious and like weird talking angles. Okay, so that book was pretty short, so I feel like that is a good first pick, and 4 people sent in those coordinates. So that will be 4 different people that I got to select coordinates from, so I am just going to remove those sets, and then I am going to spin the wheel for our second set of coordinates. Let's see, I'm telling you guys, you love bookshelf number 7. So the coordinates that were selected are 7, 4, and 8. So we do have to go to the other side of the room. Hello, I'm just going to squeeze myself into frame here. So this is going to be bookshelf number 7. So this is actual shelf number 4. And we do have to count to book number 8. I have read, I feel like, most books on this shelf, but we will see what gets selected. So I will start with the ones that are up here, and I don't really have room for them, but yeah, we'll start up there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, this is actually one that I have not read. It is Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is the special edition that they are no longer making, and I cannot complete my series, so I don't have book 3, but I believe that this is book 2, so this does actually work out perfectly, and I will add this to the TBR. Okay, so far, so good. We are thriving in this episode, so I'm just going to remove that set of coordinates, and then we will spin for our third set of coordinates. So far, both books I have not read, and that has worked out perfectly, so that's exciting. Okay, bookshelf number 5. This is exciting. I feel like we don't really get to go to bookshelf number 5, so it is 5, 2, and 8. So we do have to go to the other side of the room. Again, I do apologize for this close-up of my face. I do feel so bad that you guys have to stare at this so close up, but I really am not good with my angles for this video, so please bear with me. But this is the shelf that we will be picking from. I am just going to move that like little fake plant out of the way. So we do have to count to number 8. Again, I haven't really had to count to too high of a number, so that really does work out well. And I feel like I do have a lot of books that I can read from the shelf, so let us go ahead and count to number 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Number 8 is Belladonna by Adeline Grace, which is a book that I have not read yet, but I am very, very excited about because I have heard really, really good things about this book. So yes, another book that we can use for Tackle My TBR, another book that was selected and we didn't have to deviate from the coordinates at all. This episode is working out wonderfully. This is a fun little angle. Okay, like I said, I don't know how many books I will be doing for this episode, but the 3 books that have been picked so far are ones that I'm actually really excited to read. So I feel like we are definitely going to keep going. So I will remove that set of coordinates and I will spin the wheel for our 4th set of coordinates. So far, this episode has been absolutely perfect. We have not had to respin at all. Okay, so it's 3, 2, 34, or 7, 4, and 21. And you guys know that bookshelf number 7 has just gotten way too much love in the last couple of episodes. So I'm definitely going to pick something from bookshelf number 3. And we are already at the 2 height. So this just works out perfectly. We just have to do a little shimmy shimmy to the side. So let us shimmy on over to bookshelf numero 3. Okay, hello. We are going to be picking something from this shelf. It works very, very well that we were already at the 2 height. I am going to move that plant out of the way and we will count to book number 34. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. So 34 is Ripe by Sarah Rose Etter. And I also have not read this book, so I really feel like all of these picks are absolutely perfect. This is one that I have actually really wanted to read for a while, so very, very happy that this got selected. Now I'm in a dilemma of, do I go for a 5th book? I remember the last time I was gonna stop at 4 and then I went for a 5th book. I got a massive fantasy and I really don't want the same thing to happen, but we eventually have to break our bad luck streak. So let's go for a 5th book. I think this will be our last book and I am praying that I do not get a massive fantasy. So hoping that the book gods are nice to me. So this is going to be our last pick for Tackle My TBR episode 7. Again, we need to break the curse of getting a massive fantasy when I decide to do one final spin. So I am going to remove that set of coordinates and let us pray that we get something that is nice to me. I am really hoping that it is something good, but I'm not holding my breath. Ooh, shelf number 10. I feel like we never get to go to bookshelf number 10. So we do have 10, 5, and 14, again on the other side of the room, and I will meet you on over there. Okay, I'm hoping that you guys can see all of the books on this shelf. So this is going to be my 10th bookshelf, my 5th actual shelf, and we do have to count to 14. So let's get started. I will start up here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So 14 is Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade, which I have already read. And then the book beside that is actually Shipwrecked by Olivia Dade, which I believe is actually book 3 in this series, but I don't think that you necessarily have to read them in order. So I normally do like to read things in order, but I think what I'm going to do for this is I will just read Shipwrecked because I don't own book number 2, and I'm hoping that I don't need to have read book number 2 in order to understand what's going on. Okay, hello. I am glad that I do not have to regret going for that 5th pick. So let us recap all of the books that we will be reading for Tackle My TBR episode 7. So the first book that was selected by popular demand as 4 people sent in this set of coordinates is going to be Owned Owned by a Hitman by Alexis Abbott. This, the only thing I know about it is that it is a mafia romance. It sounds like we are following our main character who has a one-night stand, and then the guy from the one-night stand is in the mafia and he basically forces her to get into a relationship with him. So it does sound like this is going to be a dark romance. Dark romance does work for me sometimes, depending on how it is executed. So I am curious to see how I will feel about this one. I feel like I will have to read this physically. I'm not sure that there would be an audiobook for this, as I feel like this is not super popular. And again, I think it is self-published. So this will probably be a physical read for me. Then the book that was selected was Heartless by Elsie Silver. Again, I do not own book 3 in this series because the special editions that I wanted to collect went out of print. So I do believe I am missing the rest of the series. If I do like this book, I may just purchase the regular set with the print that it is coming out in now, because I just truly cannot find the one that I am missing from this series. So this sounds like we are following our main character, who is a nanny that begins working for a really grumpy single dad. I absolutely loved book 1 in this series, so I am very excited to continue on with the series, and I have heard nothing but good things about this one. So then we did pick up Belladonna by Adeline Grace. This, I believe, is a YA fantasy novel, and people have either really enjoyed this and it's worked for them, or they've absolutely just not vibed with this book. I feel like I may vibe with this just because I think that there is a little bit of a mystery going on in this book as well. It does sound like we are following an orphaned girl named Signa, who basically has had all of these caretakers trying to take care of her, but they have only really been interested in like her wealth and not actually her well-being. And then her only remaining relatives, there is some type of ghost that appears and basically states that they were poisoned. So she is trying to uncover the mystery of this murder. Again, I feel like if there is a mystery element to this book, I think I will really enjoy it. And this is one that I have been very excited to pick up. Then we picked up Ripe by Sarah Rose Etter, and I have wanted to read this book for so long, ever since I started seeing everybody talking about it and hyping this book up. I don't know that this is going to work for me, but the premise does sound interesting. The only thing I will say about this one is it sounds like we are following a woman from Silicon Valley, and it says basically how much is she willing to give up for success. So I do feel like there will be a lot of social commentary with this book, so I am curious to see how I feel about this one. And then finally, there was a little bit of confusion as to whether or not I should pick up this book, because it's not technically the next one in the series, and because I do really like to read books as they come out, but usually with romance you don't need to technically read them. It's just like a personal preference for me, but I just decided that I would just pick this one up, and that is Shipwrecked by Olivia Dade. So this is again number 3 in this series, following a different cast of characters. And this one we are following Maria, who had a one-night stand with a man a while ago, I believe, and then he basically reappears in her life, and they find out that they have to film this movie or this TV show together, and it's going to bring them to this isolated Irish island, and they have to stay there for, I think it's years that they have to stay together. So I am curious to see the timeline of this book and how the book is like written and told, and if it spans over the entirety of them filming this movie together. I'm not even sure if it is a movie, but I'm just assuming that it's some type of movie. Also, let me know down below in the comments if I should have read book 2 first, because I'm already like second guessing my decision to pick this book up instead of book number 2. This is just a personal thing for me. I hate doing things out of order, but yeah, let me know down below in the comments. It's really not going to matter because by the time you guys see this, I would have already read this book, but this is just like a personal thing for me, and it's just one of my like really weird quirks that I have. Okay, so those are the 5 books that I will be reading for Tackle My TBR episode 7. You guys already know that I will be checking in at the 50% mark of each of the books, and then I will come back with a final thoughts. Also, at the end of this video, I do give you guys a recap of everything that I read and what I thought about them. I am actually very excited for this batch of books that got picked. I do feel like it is more so on the romance heavy side, but I am totally okay with that. December does give me all of the romance vibes anyways, so I am excited that I do get to read quite a bit of romance for this episode. So yes, welcome to episode 7 of Tackle My TBR. Grab your favorite snack, grab a hot bevy, and I hope you guys enjoy episode 7 of Tackle My TBR, and I will check back in once I have some reading updates to give you guys. Okay, hello. Welcome to the first update of Tackle My TBR episode 7. As you guys saw, the book that we will be starting with is Belladonna by Adeline Grace, and I am happy to report that I am just over the 50% mark, so I am ready to give you guys some of my thoughts on this book. I will give you a synopsis of this book. I actually was just thinking that I personally believe that this book is best to go in blind, so I will keep the synopsis very, very brief and not give too much away. Essentially, we are following our main character, Signa, who since a very young age has just always been surrounded by death. Death has pretty much followed her everywhere that she goes. She will live with different relatives because she is an orphan, and each time that she goes to live with a different relative, those relatives do end up dying. The main plot of this book is Signa finally going to live with a set of relatives that are, I believe, her last remaining relatives that she has, and then there is also a mystery that is taking place while she's at this new estate with these last remaining relatives, and I think that that's kind of all I want to give you. I was reading some reviews, and reviews do kind of spoil a little bit of what happens in this book, and I don't think that I'm going to get like the full enjoyment that I would have if I did not read those reviews, so I will just keep it, again, very brief. That is going to be my synopsis. Now for my thoughts on the book. This book is giving me Addie LaRue vibes. If you guys have read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue and liked it, I think that you would really enjoy this. I obviously have not finished this book, so I cannot say that they are 100% comparable. From what I have read so far, I would definitely say that while reading this book, it is just giving me complete Addie LaRue vibes. It's also giving like a lot of like gothic vibes, Victorian vibes, which I am totally like here for. I really do like those types of vibes in my books. If that's something that you do not like, then I highly wouldn't recommend this because this is quite atmospheric and, again, very gothic and Victorian vibes. I did not realize that there was going to be a mystery element to this book, so that is a very positive surprise. I am always very excited when I do get a bit of a mystery in my books, as long as it is done well, and so far I am very much intrigued by the mystery and kind of what is happening and why it is happening, so I do really enjoy that. The only negative thing that I will say about the book so far is that it is quite a lengthy book, and at about the 50% mark, I would say that yes, the like plot has built up to a certain thing, but I truly don't feel like much has actually happened. When I think about this book and how many pages I have actually read of this book, there has really not been too much that has happened, so I would say that it is very slow moving. And yeah, if you're into like very fast-paced books, then I definitely would not recommend this because, again, I feel like this is very slow moving. But other than that, I am quite enjoying myself. Again, very intrigued by the mystery and to see where that goes. I don't believe that I've read anything by Adeline Grace, so I'm very curious to see how this ends because I am enjoying the storytelling and the writing style. I'm also going to try to keep my updates a bit more brief because I feel like these videos get so long, so that is what I am going to say for this so far at the 50% mark, and I will check back in once I do have some additional thoughts to share with you guys. Okay, good morning. How are we all doing? This clip might be a little chaotic and loud. My daughter is literally playing, and then the dog also just like loves to get involved as well, so it may be a little loud, but I am going to keep it quick and brief because I am trying to keep these updates a little bit more like brief because I find like I start to ramble and then these clips just get so long. Some reading updates for you guys. I did end up finishing Belladonna by Adeline Grace. I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars. Not too much more that I do need to say on this in terms of my thoughts. I thought that the vibes of the book continued throughout, so again, if you are looking for gothic Victorian vibes, 100% would recommend this. The mystery element in this was actually my favorite part of the book. I thought that it was so good. I thought that the reveals that took place were so good. I don't know if it was just because I wasn't really like expecting the mystery, that I wasn't really trying to piece anything together, so everything really did like catch me by surprise. The last little twist at the end involving death, if you guys have read this book, then you guys know which twist I'm talking about. Then I was completely shook, but now that I have that little bit of information, I would be so curious to reread the book to see if there were like clues leading up to that reveal. But yeah, the ending of this book had me completely shook. I am so curious to continue on with the series. I do have book 2 in this series, but I have heard that it's not as good, so I'm a little bit hesitant to pick that up. But yeah, other than that, I don't really really have much more to say on this book. I really enjoyed it. And again, I gave it 4 stars. Okay, and then I did start, and I am just over the 50% mark of Heartless by Elsie Silver. So I do have a little bit more on what this story is about, but it's pretty much what I did say when I originally was telling you guys the synopsis of this book. Essentially, this is a single dad romance. So we are following Cade and Willa. Cade has a 5-year-old son. He is a single dad. The mom of his son just kind of up and left. We didn't really get too much background on that, but she did leave. Cade is another one of the brothers that was from the first book in this series. So this is part of the Chestnut Spring series. And Willa begins to work for Cade as his nanny. It is just a nanny to essentially watch his son. She doesn't really have any other responsibilities within the home. And yeah, Cade is also described as kind of this grumpy man, and he is significantly older than Willa. So we do have age gap going on. We do have single dad, and we do have grumpy. Okay, so I will start by saying that single dad romances are not typically my favorite. I really don't like that trope usually, but for some reason, this one is really working for me. I really like Willa as a female main character. She is sarcastic and witty and very funny. And yeah, the chemistry and banter between these two characters really works for me. I will say that I am very much more so enjoying this book than I did the first one. I still enjoyed the first one, but this one is just top tier in my opinion. It is so much better than book number 1 in this series. Pretty much all positive things to say about this so far. The only one negative that I had that kind of just took me out of the story because I just didn't find it super believable. Cade talks about how protective he is of his son and that he really doesn't trust anybody to watch his son. And then Willa comes out of nowhere. She is recommended by his brother's fiance, but at the same time, she's had no experience with children ever. And for some reason, sorry, I just had to change angles, but for some reason, I just found that super unbelievable. Just the way that Cade is described in the book. I just feel like there would have been more of a process to pick a nanny to watch his son. That's just a very small little negative that if I had to give you one negative about the reading experience, that would be it. We have not reached any type of conflict yet, but we are really getting to see Cade trying to avoid his feelings for Willa, and everything is just really starting to just get explored between the two of them. And yeah, there have just actually been some serious laugh out loud moments for me where I was actually cackling, and my fiance literally looked at me and was like, "What are you laughing about?" Because I was just listening to this audiobook. There was legitimately laugh out loud moments. So yeah, that is going to be all of the updates right now. I will check back in once I have started a new book and have finished this one to give you guys my final thoughts, but let me know how you guys feel about these little quick rapid fire updates. I feel normally I really do give you guys way too much information and repeat the information multiple times. So we're trying something new here. We're trying to cut down on these video times and just give you guys clear, concise thoughts. Let me know down below in the comments how you guys feel. And yeah, we will check back in once I have some further updates. Hello, Tackle My TBR episode 7. I feel like this episode is absolutely flying by. I have been reading these books super quickly, so I am very excited about that, and I am excited to share with you that I did finish Heartless by Elsie Silver. So not too much more to add on this book. There are a couple of points that I do want to make about this book, and then I will kind of move on and let you guys know about what else I was able to read. So I did end up giving Heartless a 4.25 stars. I thought that this romance was so good. Again, I am somebody who doesn't typically like the single dad trope, but this one worked really well for me because I truly did enjoy both of our characters. I thought that their chemistry was super genuine and real, and I feel like things weren't rushed into, which I'm sure they actually are in the grand scheme of the timeline of this book, but it just felt like everything was happening very genuinely, their relationship was growing. The way that a real life relationship would kind of develop and grow into, I thought that it was really well done for that. The only other things that I will say about this book is that the ending ending actually had me very, very surprised because I really did not know that there was this specific trope in the book. So when this specific thing happened, I was taken very much aback. I did not see it coming. I was not expecting it at all. If you have read this book, then you know what trope I am talking about. I will not say it because I didn't know about it going in and I actually preferred it that way. It gave me a better reading experience, so I will not spoil it for you, but I did not know that that was part of the book. And I think that it was handled very, very well. I think that both of our main characters were very mature. And then speaking to their maturity, of course, there is a little bit of a conflict that happens in here, as there usually is with all romance books. And I feel like, again, things were not really taken out of context. I feel like both of our main characters were able to kind of solve this conflict, not dwell too much on it, not really have a miscommunication. It was more so just like two adults having a conversation and just being very mature about it, which I really, really do enjoy in my romances. Truly just hate when the conflict is just roll your eyes ridiculous most of the time, but I didn't have that happening in this book, so I was very, very satisfied with that. I love how everything wrapped up, and there is this scene at the very end between Willa and Luke, which is Cade's son. I believe his name is Luke, and there's this like really heartwarming scene at the end. I, again, will not really give too many details on it, but it was just like such a heartfelt moment where like I just thought it was the sweetest, most precious moment ever. It really just bumped this book up for me because my heart was like literally melting at this scene. Again, if you guys have read this book, you hopefully know which scene I'm talking about between Luke and Willa. And yeah, I did give this a 4.25 stars. I don't know if I mentioned it. Very, very good. Don't have too much else to say on this one. And then I am also about 50% of the way done with Ripe. This book is, I don't even really know how to give you guys like a very like well drawn out explanation of what this book is, because as I'm reading it, I kind of understand like the main premise and what the book is trying to do, but I just have like a hard time conveying that into like a summary that I can give you guys. Okay, so this is like a literary fiction, and it's one of these like really weird like lit fic type of books, which typically do not work for me, but I feel like this one is working. I don't really know how to like even process my feelings on this book, so I'll try to just give you guys a really quick description of this. So in this, we are following a main character named Cassidy, who is living in Silicon Valley, and she also works for like a corporate job, and this job is basically very demanding of her, and it's kind of instilling these like unethical practices and making her do a lot of things that she typically would be going against. It does have a lot of commentary on like workplaces and like toxic work environments. So I feel like if you have ever worked in that type of environment, then you would definitely be able to relate to this. And then there's another aspect of this book where there is this black hole, and this black hole is following Cassie around, and it is supposed to depict her depression and anxiety, I am pretty sure, is what I have gathered from what I have read. Basically, when she is feeling anxious, she does always refer to this black hole. I believe that it is supposed to represent depression and anxiety in Cassie. So again, I am not somebody who typically really likes very strange and weird lit fic. I do enjoy horror, which can get very, very bizarre and strange, but I feel like that is in like a different way. And when it is like literary horror, I find myself just not gravitating towards those type of books. They just really do not work for me. This book, however, I don't know if it's working for me or not, but I am truly just flying through this book, and I am just constantly wanting to pick it up. I just stopped listening to it earlier in the day, and I feel like I have a little bit of time now, and all I want to do is just put it back in and listen to it because I am just so engaged by this story. Again, I don't think I would recommend this book necessarily to many people because I feel like you have to be a specific type of reader to actually like enjoy this kind of book and this kind of writing. It is very like beautiful writing. The author does use a lot of prose, which again is something that typically does not work for me, but I am having a really good time. I'm super curious to see how I feel about the ending of this book and kind of how things wrap up. I did also forget to mention that Cassie is also trying to navigate a relationship with somebody who is not technically available to her. So we have had many, many scenes with her trying to navigate this relationship with this man. And yeah, I'm just very curious to see where this book goes, and I'm very intrigued, but it is not something that I would typically recommend to anybody. And if I do end up enjoying it, it would be very, very surprising reading because these are not the typical books that I do enjoy. And again, they are not going to be for everybody. So do take my review of this book with a grain of salt. And yeah, right now I do have a little bit of time, so I am just going to continue listening to this audiobook, and I will check back in with you guys once I have finally finished this book. Again, Tackle My TBR episode 7 is just flying by. I know it's all the same like time for you guys because you guys always just get to see all of my updates, but for me, like I feel like I just started filming this like 2 days ago and I'm already on book 3, and I am also physically reading another one, but I will just talk about that once I do get to the 50% mark of that book. And yeah, I will check back in once I do have some more reading updates. Hello and good morning. I do have some reading updates to share with you guys, and some of these are very, very shocking. So the first reading update that you guys can probably guess is that I did finish with Ripe by Sarah Rose Etter. Last time I spoke to you guys, didn't really know like where this book was going to be sitting. I didn't really know if it was going to be for me. I am happy to say that I absolutely loved this book. This is probably one of the most surprising books that I have read this year. I really did not think that I would like it, as like I told you guys, strange lit fic really hasn't worked for me lately. I haven't really found my niche in it, but this was just so good. I don't think that I would recommend this book per se to many people. I think that you do have to be a very specific type of a reader, or you just have to kind of get lucky like me. So I don't think that I would technically recommend this book, but I personally really enjoyed it and really loved this book, and nobody is more shocked than me. This book just really spoke to me. You know when a book kind of like seems like it's talking directly to you? I kind of had that feeling with this book. I think that this book does a really good deep dive into like the toxicity of the corporate world, and I really like the way that depression and anxiety was represented throughout this book. I think that the author did a very good job with that. So I do feel like this book did end with like an ambiguous ending. You don't really get all of the answers with this book. But yeah, this does have a bit of an ambiguous ending, but I absolutely love those type of endings where you can kind of interpret what happened. I obviously did a very like deep dive on Reddit, and there were some theories where I did feel like that is exactly what happened. And I'm sorry if you guys can hear some like rustling. My daughter literally just woke up. She was crying in her crib, so I decided to bring her on in for this clip. So if you hear some rustling, she's just playing with all of my tabs on the floor right now. So yeah, not much more to say on this. Again, I don't think it's going to be for everyone. It really worked for me. There were absolutely amazing lines in this book. I really want to reread this at some point. I definitely think next year I want to leave December for kind of rereads and just annotating books that I have wanted to annotate for a while. I'm not really sure if that's what I'm going to do, but I definitely do want to reread this physically and annotate my copy. And yeah, I don't think I mentioned it, but I did give this a 4.5 stars out of 5. One of the most surprising books I think I've read this year for sure. So happy for this series on my channel for getting me to actually pick this up. And then the last update that I have is that I did start, and I am about 50% of the way through with Owned by a Hitman. This is the book that I was talking about that I was kind of like picking away at physically. I am literally just under the 50% mark of this book. And I think that for this, I am definitely going to say that it is a me problem at this point. Do you know when you're just not in a mood for a book, and normally a book would be like a 3.5 stars, just very average, but you just really do not want to pick it up? That is the feeling that I'm getting with this book. I am just really not in the mood for this book, and I have not been able to get an audiobook for this. The only audiobook that I have found is on Audible, and I don't have an Audible subscription, so I'm definitely not paying like the $23 that they want for this audiobook. So I am just chipping away slowly at this book. It is taking me a little bit of time, but it is just because I am truly just not in the mood for like a dark mafia romance right now. So where this book would normally be sitting at like a 3-star, I feel like I am kind of getting like 1.5 to 2-star energy right now, but I feel like this is a me thing. I think that this book does have potential, and I think that if you are in the mood for like a dark mafia romance, then this would be a good option. I don't really hear too many people talking about this book, so I do want to like get it out there and say that I do think that it is decent for what it is trying to do. It is just not personally what I'm in the mood for at this exact moment, but in saying that, I will give you guys a little bit more context on this book. So in this, we are following Katie, who has has inherited a nightclub from her father who passed away, but in inheriting this nightclub, she has also inherited a bunch of his debt. So there are some mafia members that do want to come and collect this debt. There is a whole incident that happens one night where this other guy, Ivan, who is the love interest in this book, he comes and basically like swoops in, saves the day. They had previously met on a hookup that they had like months prior, and somehow Ivan just comes into this club at this exact time, swoops in and saves the day, and basically says like, I will pay all your debts, I will get the mafia off of your back, but the only stipulation is that you have to be mine for a year. And it basically entails anything he wants her to do, she has to do. So yeah, that is the basic premise of this book. There are some like problems that I have with that. I am not someone who typically gets offended by things that are in books. I never actually get offended by things that are in books. So it's not the like dark elements of this book that I have a problem with. It's just more so like the realistic elements for me. Like, this guy is supposed to be this like big mafia guy who doesn't take shit from anybody, and we are 50% of the way through, and he's basically told Katie like, I own you, and then he's taking her out on like cute dates. So the math just is not mathing in my head. Personally, like I feel like it was going to be more of like a dominant type of situation in this book, and I am just not getting that from this. And yeah, so we will see how this wraps up. I'm going to wrap up this clip now though, because my daughter is getting very, very antsy in this room. And yeah, I will check back in once I have finished this, hopefully with some more positive thoughts on this book. Hello, beautiful besties. How are we doing? I have literally been filming this video for so long. I feel like the beginning of this video was going by so fast, and then I had to wait for my last audiobook, so that was such a lull in the like filming process. So I feel like I have been filming this forever, but I am finally here to give you guys my final thoughts on Owned by a Hitman and then also Shipwrecked, which I have finished and read both of those books. So I will quickly go over those two books, give you guys my thoughts, and then I will wrap up this video. I thought that I would give you guys the like background of my tree kind of to not make this like white wall look so boring. Hopefully that translates well, but let's get on with the updates. Okay, so I was already giving you guys my thoughts on Owned by a Hitman. The last time I checked in, I just like really was not vibing with this book. I was just not in the mood to be reading this book, and I feel like that just like hindered my enjoyment, but I also think that I really wouldn't have enjoyed this book regardless of whether or not I was in the mood for it. Mafia romances are just not really my thing. I have tried them in the past and they are just not really my vibe. So I really didn't like this book. I ended up giving this book a 2 out of 5 stars. Stand by everything I said in the previous clip, and the last little point that I will make on this book, and then I will no longer like harp on it or talk about it. I just feel like the plot of this book was really dumb and stupid, if I'm being completely honest. I don't really understand how Ivan gets involved in this girl's life. I actually can't even remember her name because I have like truly just like blocked this book out of my brain. And then all of the reveals and how the antagonist in this book is like brought in and what his motives are for things. And then at the end when the girl, I believe her name is Katie, I just looked on Goodreads and someone wrote Katie in their review, so I'm gonna go with it. So when Katie and Ivan are basically like setting up this like antagonist in the book, I thought it was just like the dumbest thing ever. It just did not make any sense to me. It also didn't make any sense that Ivan is this like massive mafia boss and he is listening to what Katie is saying, but also like not going out and killing people because she's saying so. And it's just not very believable when you think about mafia, and Ivan just didn't give me like mafia boy vibes at all. The reveals in this book and just the plot in general were so boring to me and just not something I want to read. I am going to be unhauling this book, and I am also going to be unhauling the other book that I have in this series because it is just truly not something that I want to waste my time on. It's not something that I'm interested in. I gave this a 2-star. I really was just not in the mood for it, but also I just think that the plot and Ivan as a character and the reveals that happened and the way that the antagonist gets like played by these two, how they try to like take him down, was just one of the dumbest things I've ever read. I really didn't have a good time with this. So yeah, 2 out of 5 stars. And then I also was able to start and finish Shipwrecked by Olivia Dade. This is the book that actually took me a while to get from my library. There was only one person ahead of me in line, and it felt like it took weeks to get this book because I had this entire video filmed already and I was just waiting on this audiobook, and I feel like that was weeks ago. But I have finally started and finished this book. So I will give you guys a little bit more context on this book. So this is following Maria and Peter, and the timeline of this book, I believe, spans over 6 years. So at the beginning of this book, we find out that Maria and Peter do have a one-night stand, and then both of them are cast to work on this show. So then the two of them have to basically work together on the show, and again, it does span over 6 years. I believe they are filming the show for 6 years, and Maria is still pretty interested in Peter, but Peter is more so very much interested in his career and success and kind of taking off with a really good acting career. So that's kind of his main focus. And yeah, this book is broken into different parts as well. So there are letters, there are different types of interludes. I'm not really sure what they were called in the book, but there are just these little snippets of things that kind of take you out of the story. And I feel like that was part of the reason that this book didn't really work for me. I found the time jumps of this book to be a little bit confusing. The way that it kind of spanned over 6 years, I really did not enjoy that. I just didn't really like the way that Olivia Dade wrote that specifically. At the very beginning of this book, I really did like our main character of Maria. I thought she was a very strong female character. She really didn't let anybody step on her toes. She stood up for herself. There were multiple scenes in this book where she was being tested and the producers of the show were trying to get her to do things that she didn't believe in, and she definitely stood her ground. So I really did like Maria as a main character at the beginning of this book. Whereas Peter was a little bit more of a doormat. I feel like he let people walk all over him, and not so much walk all over him, but if the producers were telling him to do something, he was so focused on his career that he just kind of agreed with everything that they were saying because he wanted to make sure that he wasn't ruffling any feathers. And I really didn't like that, but I know that he was purposely written that way. That is kind of his character and what his character believed in. But I did like that Maria stood up for herself and really just didn't take anybody walking all over her. I also felt like the connection between our two main characters was not so much a romantic connection, but more so a sexual connection, which is completely fine, but I just wasn't expecting that. I feel like they really didn't have too much of a romantic connection. I didn't really feel the chemistry between the two of them. I thought that their relationship was purely sexual. The book spans over 6 years, like I said, and both of our main characters have some past traumas that we do get to learn a little bit about, but this book was pretty long and I just feel like we never really got to dive deep into our characters' trauma. I feel like things could have been very much more explained, and I feel like this book was quite slow moving. So for something that was moving so slowly, I would think that you would get a little bit more detail on the past traumas, but we really did not get too much detail on that. So that is one other thing that I didn't really like about this book. I would have much preferred to see that trauma a little bit more explored. And then the last little gripe that I have with this book is that there were some really cringy lines during the sex scenes. Peter would say some things sometimes where I was just completely taken out of the book. I was rolling my eyes. It was just really some very cringy lines during the sex scenes, and every time that happens, it really just takes me out of the book. Overall, I didn't 100% enjoy this book. I did end up giving this one a 2.5 stars out of 5. I think that this episode was really, really good. I got some really good books out of this. This was probably one of the better episodes in terms of ratings. So let me go through all of the books that I did read for Tackle My TBR episode 7. The first book I read for this video was Belladonna by Adeline Grace. I did give this a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought that the mystery was really good. I was very surprised by the ending. Totally want to read the next book based off of the ending. I thought that this gave very Victorian Gothic vibes, and I really did enjoy the mystery. So 4 out of 5 stars for this one. Then I read Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is a romance. This is a single dad romance. I did end up giving this one a 4.25 stars. I thought that our characters' chemistry was really good. I thought that the pacing of this book was really good. It felt very, very genuine, the connection between these two, and the ending of this book just left my heart feeling so warm. So I absolutely loved this one, much better than the first one I read in this series, but yes, gave this one a 4.25 stars. Then Then I read Ripe by Sarah Rose Etter, and this was the star of the show. Even though I did have some really high ratings for this episode, this book I gave a 4.5 stars. It actually made my honorable mentions in my best books of 2024. This is not a book that I would recommend to most people, but I think that if you have ever worked in a toxic work environment, that this book would be like something to consider picking up. But I would read trigger warnings because it does deal with a lot of anxiety and depression, but I did give this one a 4.5 stars. Following that, I did read Owned by a Hitman by Alexis Abbott, which I did just talk about. I gave this book a 2 out of 5 stars. I really just did not enjoy this. I hated the plot. I hated our characters, not believable at all. And I just thought that the antagonist and how he became involved and kind of how they wrapped up the story with him was just one of the dumbest things I have ever read. And I definitely do not recommend this book. So yeah, 2 out of 5 stars for this one. And the book that I was just talking about, which was Shipwrecked by Olivia Dade, I just gave you guys all of my thoughts on this book. I did give this a 2.5 stars. It's definitely not my favorite that I've read by the author. I am very curious to see what I would think of book 2 in this series. Yeah, I did like our main character Maria, but other than that, I just thought that this was like very weird with like time jumps and the length of the book and just not really diving deep into our characters' backstories. So I did give this one a 2.5 stars. That is it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you did make it to the end of this video, you can leave behind the cherry emoji just because there is no pomegranate emoji to represent ripe. So cherries are kind of the only thing that look semi like a pomegranate, I guess, because they're red. If you did like today's video, you can also let me know by hitting that thumbs up like button. And as always, if you are new here, I would love to have you stick around. So please hit that subscribe button and I will see you guys all in my next one. Bye.